The Unseen Front, a Wartime Diary. Discover the poignant story of Elara Hayes, a courageous woman whose silent bravery and compassion during World War II unveil a forgotten diary. This intimate wartime account reveals the unseen battles of humanity, where war is not only fought on battlefields, but also within hearts, bridging past and present through acts of quiet heroism. Chapter 1. The Attic's Secret. The air in the Hobart attic hung heavy, thick with the scent of aged wood, forgotten textiles, and the faint, sweet decay of time itself. Dust motes, like tiny ethereal dancers, swirled in the single beam of sunlight that dared to pierce the gloom, illuminating the cluttered landscape of his great-grandmother's life. Mark, a university student of 19, typically more interested in band t-shirts and late-night philosophical debates than domestic chores, sighed, pulling a persistent cobweb from his unruly hair. He was on a reluctant mission, tasked with the unenviable job of clearing out the accumulated memories of his recently deceased great-grandmother, Elara. Another box of memories, he muttered to himself, his voice echoing faintly in the quiet space. Probably just more porcelain cats. His expectations were low, his patience thin, as he shoved aside a stack of brittle old magazines, their covers faded with decades of neglect. It was then, tucked deep in a forgotten corner, almost as if it had been deliberately hidden, that he saw it, a small, unassuming wooden box. It was dark with age, its surface smooth and worn from countless unseen touches, utterly devoid of any luck or adornment, yet it felt heavier than it looked, imbued with a quiet gravitas that piqued his dormant curiosity, a rare spark of genuine interest, a flicker amidst his usual youthful apathy, ignited within him. He pulled the box out, blowing off a thick layer of dust that billowed into the sunbeam like a miniature cloud. A lid was stiff, resistant, but with a soft creak that seemed to whisper of long-held secrets. It yielded. Inside, nestled on a bed of yellowed, faded velvet, were two items, each carefully placed, each radiating an almost palpable sense of significance. The first was a piece of metal, oddly shaped, dark and slightly warped, its edges jagged as if violently torn. It was carefully wrapped in a linen cloth, now brittle with age, and felt strangely cold to the touch, a fragment of something powerful and destructive. The second was a small, leather-bound diary, its cover worn smooth, its pages thick and brittle, secured with a faded ribbon that had once been a vibrant crimson. His fingers, usually clumsy, handled it with an unexpected gentleness. He untied the ribbon, and his gaze fell upon the first page. The handwriting was elegant, looping, distinctly feminine, a stark contrast to the rough, utilitarian nature of the metal piece. He leaned closer, his eyes widening as he read the inscription aloud, his voice dropping to a whisper, as if afraid to disturb the profound silence that had suddenly settled around him. Elara Hayes, December 7th, 1941. The date hit him with the force of a physical blow. December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor. The day America entered World War II. And Elara, his great-grandmother. He knew she'd lived through the war, of course. It was a fact, a distant historical marker. But she had rarely, if ever, spoken of it. Her memories seemingly locked away behind a stoic silence. This wasn't just old junk, not just another family heirloom. This was history, personal and profound. The dusty attic. Moments ago, a repository of forgotten clutter, suddenly felt charged with unspoken stories, with the weight of a secret that had waited decades to be discovered. A testament to a life lived through unimaginable times. Chapter 2: When the Sky Fell. The quiet hum of the 1982 night settled around Mark's bedroom, a stark contrast to the distant thunder of war that now crackled from the pages of Elara's diary. He sat on his bed, a worn, leather-bound book open on his lap, the mysterious piece of warped metal resting beside it, a tangible link to the unfolding narrative. The warm glow of his bedside lamp illuminated the faded script, drawing him into his great-grandmother's world, a world on the precipice of unimaginable change. He began to read, his voice a low murmur, as if afraid to disturb the ghosts of the past. This war, it feels so far away, yet the air is thick with fear. Life here in coastal Tasmania feels brittle. We listen to the wireless, clinging to every word, but the ocean outside our window seems to whisper of distant thunder. Elara's early entries painted a picture of a quiet, almost idyllic existence in a small coastal town near Hobart. She was a young woman in her early 20s, her days filled with the simple rhythms of tending her garden, helping her mother with the intricacies of rationing, and listening to the crackle of the wireless, where the war was a distant, terrifying hum, a monstrous symphony playing out on another continent. It was a conflict far removed from their peaceful shores, an abstract concept of global struggle. February 19th, 1942. Darwin has been bombed. It's real now. Too real. We watch the skies, though there's nothing to see but gulls and clouds. Yet, a knot of dread tightens in my stomach with every passing day. The bombing of Darwin, a brutal blow to Australian soil, shattered the illusion of distance. The war was no longer an abstract concept. It was a tangible threat, a shadow creeping closer to their isolated lives. The calm vigilance of Elara's early entries gave way to a palpable undercurrent of anxiety, a constant awareness of the vast, indifferent ocean that now felt less like a protective barrier and more like a wide-open pathway for unseen dangers. Then came the entry for March 10th, 1942. Mark's eyes widened, gripping the diary tighter as he read. The sound, it was unlike anything I've ever heard. Not thunder, not the distant rumble of the naval guns we sometimes hear from the training grounds. This was a tearing, a shriek, then a roar that shook the very earth. We ran to the cliffs, and then we saw it. A B-29, American, black smoke pouring from its engines, spiraling down, a wounded bird plummeting towards the sea. It crashed just beyond the outer reefs, a terrible, fiery explosion that sent a plume of black smoke into the sky. My heart stopped. No one could survive that. Mark's breath hitched, a B-29 crash near the Australian coast. This wasn't in any history book he'd read, any documentary he'd seen. This was a secret, a forgotten tragedy, brought to life by his great-grandmother's words. He flipped the page, eager, a knot of dread forming in his own stomach, knowing that the story was far from over. Later that day, as the sun set, painting the ocean in blood, I saw something. A flicker in the shallows, near the rocks. A man, barely alive, an American pilot. His uniform was torn, his face streaked with blood and oil. He was barely conscious, muttering something I couldn't understand. My first instinct was fear. He was a stranger from a war that had just fallen from the sky. But then I saw his eyes, and they were just eyes, terrified, human. Mark looked at the piece of dark, warped metal beside the diary, a cold, silent witness to the crash. Could it be from that very plane? The story had just begun, and already the war was taking on a terrifyingly personal dimension. A confrontation not of nations, but of a young woman's courage against the brutal reality of a conflict that had landed, quite literally, on her doorstep. Chapter 3: The Secret Sanctuary. The glow of Mark's bedside lamp cast long shadows across his bedroom walls, transforming the familiar space into a portal to the past. He continued to read, mesmerized by Elara's elegant script, each word drawing him deeper into his great-grandmother's extraordinary act of defiance. March 11th, 1942. I brought him back to the old fishing shack, hidden in the cove. No one saw. Mother would have my hide, but I couldn't leave him. He's barely a man. Younger than me. His leg is shattered, a terrible wound. He keeps muttering a name, Sarah. I cleaned him as best I could, using the herbs Mother taught me. Fear gnaws at me. What if someone finds him? What if he's an enemy? But he's just a boy, bleeding. The diary meticulously detailed the harrowing days that followed. Elara, a young woman accustomed to the quiet rhythms of coastal life, was transformed into a clandestine nurse, her ingenuity stretched to its limits. She risked daily trips to the local general store, subtly altering her rationing lists to account for the extra mouth, her heart pounding with every suspicious glance from the shopkeeper. She gathered herbs from the bush, carefully preparing poultices and infusions, relying on the ancient knowledge her mother, a quiet healer in her own right, had passed down. The constant threat of discovery was a gnawing anxiety. The unexpected knock on her door, the distant sound of a passing patrol car, the lingering fear of suspicious neighbors. The pilot, Lieutenant James Jimmy Miller, a boy barely out of his teens from Ohio, was initially delirious, his fevered mutterings a jumble of names and combat jargon. As the days blurred into weeks, and Elara's careful tending slowly nursed him back from the brink, his initial fear of her, a stranger in a strange land, gradually gave way to a grudging trust. Their interactions were cautious at first, a silent dance of wary glances and hushed movements in the dim light of the shack. But as Jimmy's strength returned, so did his voice, and with it, the rigid lines of wartime ideology began to blur. March 20th, 1942. He spoke my name today, Elara. His voice is rough, but clear. He told me his name is Jimmy, from Ohio. He has a sister, Sarah. He misses home. We talk for hours, whispering in the dark. Not about the war. Not about sides. About the smell of rain in Ohio. About the taste of Mother's apple pie. About the stars. He asked about Tasmania. I told him about the quiet, about the ocean, about the taste of fresh berries. In the dim light of the lamp, he's just a boy, far from home, injured. And I'm just a girl, trying to help. The uniforms, the flags, they seem so far away. Mark felt a profound connection to Elara, a surge of awe at her quiet defiance, her unwavering compassion in the face of fear. The diary entries painted a vivid picture of shared humanity, breaking down the rigid lines of wartime propaganda. The piece of warped metal on his bed, a silent witness to the crash, seemed to hum with a new significance. no longer just a fragment of wreckage, but a tangible link to the burgeoning bond between two young people caught in the vast, impersonal machinery of war. April 5th, 1942. He's stronger now, too strong to stay hidden much longer. He speaks of getting back to his unit, of fighting. I see the guilt in his eyes, the burden of being a burden. But I also see the fear. He's just a boy, caught in a war he didn't choose, in a land he never expected to see. The diary ended this section with a growing sense of dread, a ticking clock that resonated with Mark in the quiet of his room. Jimmy was recovering, but his presence was a dangerous secret that could not be kept indefinitely. The sanctuary, once a haven, was becoming a cage, and the quiet act of compassion was about to demand an even greater sacrifice. Chapter 4. The Weight of the Secret. The diary's pages grew thin beneath Mark's fingers, each entry now shorter, more frantic, reflecting the increasing strain that pressed down on Elara. The quiet sanctuary of the fishing shack, once a haven, had become a cage, its walls seeming to close in with every passing day. The tension was palpable, a constant, low hum beneath the surface of Elara's meticulously documented life. April 15th, 1942. Mrs. Henderson from next door asked too many questions about the extra food on the rationing list. My heart pounded. She's a busybody. Or worse. Jimmy heard her. He looked at me, his eyes full of a new kind of fear. Not for himself, but for me. The weight of this secret is crushing. The diary detailed a series of terrifying near misses. The distant thrum of a patrol boat passing too close to the cove, its searchlights occasionally sweeping the shoreline. The incessant, unnerving barking of a neighbor's dog near the shack, a sound that sent icy tendrils of fear through Elara's veins. The constant, gnawing anxiety of a sudden, unexpected knock on the door, a betrayal of their impossible secret. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every sound a potential discovery. Jimmy, though physically recovering, was grappling with his own profound demons. The quiet of the shack, far from the roar of battle, offered no escape from the horrors etched into his mind. He had nightmares, waking up in cold sweats, screaming silently into the darkness, reliving the fiery crash, the desperate faces of his crew, the sickening plunge into the icy water. He spoke of the unspeakable things he had seen, the friends he had lost, the crushing guilt of being the sole survivor, a burden that weighed heavier than any physical wound. His youthful bravado had been stripped away, replaced by a haunted weariness that mirrored Elara's own. He was desperate to get back to the fight, to avenge his fallen comrades, to find purpose in the chaos, but also to alleviate the burden he felt he was placing on Elara. April 28th, 1942. Jimmy spoke of going back to the fight. He says he can't be a burden anymore. He wants to find a way to get back to Allied lines. But how? The coast is watched. The risk is immense. For both of us. He offered me something, a piece of his plane, a twisted bit of metal, as a promise he'd never forget. I took it, my hand trembling. Mark looked at the metal piece lying on his bed, now understanding its origin and its profound significance. It wasn't just a fragment of wreckage. It was a tangible token of a desperate promise, a silent vow exchanged between two people bound by an extraordinary, dangerous secret. The diary revealed the immense emotional toll on Elara. The sleepless nights spent listening to the ocean, the constant anxiety that gnawed at her, the profound loneliness of carrying such a secret entirely on her own. She wrote of the agonizing moral dilemma, saving one life versus the terrifying risk to her own family and community, a choice that weighed on her soul. May 10th, 1942. I've heard whispers of a fishing boat run by an old man known for his discreet trips. It's a long shot, a dangerous one, but it might be our only hope. Jimmy's eyes are hollow. He needs to go. We both do. This has to end. The diary ended this section with Elara's agonizing decision to seek help from an unknown, potentially dangerous source, knowing the immense risks involved. Mark felt a profound sense of awe and sorrow for his great-grandmother, a woman who had faced impossible choices with quiet heroism. Her courage, a testament to the enduring power of compassion in the brutal crucible of war. The silence of his bedroom was now filled with the unspoken tension of Elara's desperate gamble, waiting to see if her act of kindness would lead to salvation or ruin. Chapter 5: A Legacy of Connection. Mark reached the final, brittle pages of the diary, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The lamp on his bedside table cast long, dancing shadows, making the room feel less like a modern bedroom and more like a portal to the past, a silent witness to his great-grandmother's most profound secret. The entries described the perilous journey, the culmination of Elara's desperate plan. May 15th, 1942. The old fisherman Silas agreed, for a price, a steep one, but he understood. He knew the ocean. He knew secrets. We moved Jimmy under the cover of darkness, a moonless night. His leg was still weak, but his resolve was fierce. He gripped my hand. "Thank you, Elara," he whispered. "I'll never forget you." The words painted a vivid, tense scene. Silas, a grizzled old man whose eyes held the wisdom and weariness of the sea, navigating treacherous currents and the ever-present threat of watchful patrols. Jimmy, still weakened, hidden beneath fishing nets, battling pain and the gnawing fear of discovery. Elara, a solitary figure on the shore, her heart in her throat, listening to the distant roar of the ocean, until Silas's boat returned. Empty, save for the old fisherman, a silent confirmation of a dangerous mission completed. May 17th, 1942. Silas returned. He just nodded. "He's safe. Made it to a supply ship." I felt a wave of relief so profound it almost buckled my knees. And then, a strange emptiness. He was gone. The war continued, but my own private battle was over. It changed me. Made me see things differently. The lines on the map, the uniforms, the flags. They didn't matter as much as the fear in a boy's eyes or the kindness of a stranger. Elara's words resonated deeply with Mark. The bittersweet mix of profound relief and a hollow ache for the departure of someone she had risked everything for. Someone who had become a fleeting, intense part of her life was palpable. The war raged on, a distant, global conflict, but for Elara, a deeply personal chapter had closed. The experience had fundamentally altered her perception, stripping away the abstract notions of enemy and ally to reveal the raw, vulnerable humanity beneath. The final entry in the diary was dated several years later, after the war had finally ended. A quiet reflection on the aftermath. November 11th, 1945. The war is over. The celebrations are loud. but a quietness remains in my heart. I wonder about Jimmy. Did he make it home? Did he find Sarah? I still have the piece of his plane, a reminder, not of war, but of connection, of humanity, found in the most unlikely of places. We are all just people, trying to survive, trying to help, trying to find our way home. Mark closed the diary, his hands trembling, the weight of the small, leather-bound book feeling immense. He looked at the piece of dark, warped metal, now understanding its profound significance. It wasn't just a fragment of a downed plane. It was a tangible link to a story of quiet heroism, of compassion that defied the brutal, dehumanizing logic of war. He saw his great-grandmother not as a stoic, distant figure from old photographs, but as a brave, empathetic young woman who had risked everything for a stranger, a testament to the enduring power of human connection. He thought of the years of silence, the unspoken stories that had resided within her, locked away, never boasted about. Elara's heroism was a private act, a quiet testament to the enduring power of humanity, a personal battle fought on an unseen front. Mark felt a deep, unexpected connection to his family history, a profound understanding that war was not just about bullets and bombs, but about the unexpected bonds forged in the crucible of conflict. About the unseen front, where kindness and courage truly fought their most important battles. The metal piece, cold in his hand, now hummed with the warmth of a forgotten, extraordinary love, a legacy that transcended generations. Finally found in the dusty quiet of an attic,